Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
AI is moving fast. So fast, it's hard to keep up. In fact, in ServiceNow's latest AI Maturity Index, scores dipped 20% from last year. But that's okay, because AI isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. You may be behind today, but tomorrow you could be a pace setter. Dive into ServiceNow's AI Maturity Index and see how you can innovate as fast as your ambitions. Visit servicenow.com/AI maturity.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
The McDonald's snack wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch snack wrap. Spicy snack wrap. You broke the internet. For a snack. Snack wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
I'm always looking for ways to show my cat how much I love her. And with Fancy Feast Gems, I can pamper her whenever I want with a savory gravy on top of a gourmet mousse pâté. The pyramid shape makes serving simple, so all I have to do is peel and plate to make mealtime feel extra fancy. And with 2 entrees in every pack, it's easy to turn every day into the extraordinary. Fancy Feast Gems.
This episode is brought to you by Starbucks. Smooth, bright, deliciously crafted. Introducing Starbucks Sansera Blend, their smoothest, brightest coffee yet. It's a new kind of light roast, one that's packed with so much flavor, it shines no matter how you brew it. So go ahead and try it hot, iced, black, or with a splash of creamer. Visit athome.starbucks.com/Sansera-blend-coffee to bring Starbucks Sansera Blend home.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Today's top story, the flavor merger of the century between the Peanut Butter Group and Chocolatey Corp. Joining me is a PBC executive.
Thanks for having me, Barry.
Now, how did you know the merger and the byproduct of it, Jif peanut butter and chocolate flavored spread, would be a success?
You know, it was a gut feeling, a rumbling, if you will. Besides, they're two titans of taste.
Very true. Goes great with pretzels.
And pancakes.
Apples too, I bet. Try Jif PBC today.
Everyone who works at Starbucks, full or part-time, gets stock in our company, simply for being part of our company. That's why we call our employees partners, because when Starbucks succeeds, our people do too. And that success turns into down payments, family vacations, and so much more. At Starbucks, benefits like company stock are just the start. Learn more about how we support partners at starbucks.com/partners.
This episode is brought to you by Cadillac. Cadillac certified service technicians are factory trained to fit your vehicle with the tires specifically developed for it. And with our tire price match guarantee, you get the best fit for the best deal. Let us do the work. Available on select eligible tire brands at participating dealers only. Offer ends 12/31/2025. Terms apply. See dealer for complete details. Visit Cadillac.com/service to learn more.
Learning through play starts with Lego Duplo. With Lego Duplo, toddlers can develop real-life skills while having fun with colorful bricks made just for them. Large, easy to grip, and safe to explore. When children express themselves with Lego Duplo, they build patience, problem-solving, and empathy. See your child learn perseverance and self-expression with everything they imagine and create. Visit lego.com/preschool to learn more.
It's back to school season, and Clorox is donating 2 million disinfecting wipes to classrooms across America. Because back to school means things can get a little bit messy. Just ask kindergarten teacher Miss Gibson.
Give me just one Clorox wipe and I'm ready for glitter glue, exploded lunchbox yogurt, peanut butter handprints, runny noses, picking noses, rubbing noses.
Touching noses.
Thank you, Edward. Ooh, nap mats and lockers and tissue boxes. And
Clorox
scissors.
disinfecting wipes. Teacher's #1 wipe. Clean feels good. Based on unit sales data.
Get lost in the acoustic brilliance of 3D audio that surrounds you. Feel the embrace of the massage seats that adapt to your every move. Experience the warmth of a vehicle that welcomes you as you approach. We could tell you what makes a Lincoln SUV so extraordinary, but don't take our word for it. Take it on a test drive at the Lincoln Summer Invitation, with exclusive offers on now, only at your local Lincoln retailer.
Have you ever spotted McDonald's hot, crispy fries right as they're being scooped into the carton? And time just stands still. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts. Patrick Hardy, welcome to the conversation today.
Thanks for having me, John.
It's a real pleasure. You're joining us from Sacramento. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about preparing for disasters and how we engage our teams in that preparation to make sure we're ready. The reality is disasters happen, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's something like a global pandemic, whatever the case may be. And so we just have to
do a little bit of strategic foresight and put plans in place. And you're an expert in this field, in this area, and you've written a book recently on this topic. So we're going to be exploring all of this together. As we get started, I wanted to share Patrick's bio with everybody. Patrick Hardy is founder and CEO of Hytropy Disaster Management, the largest full-service small business disaster management company in the U.S., a certified emergency manager, certified risk manager, and master business continuity professional and FEMA Master of Continuity. He has extensive experience working in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors in disaster management, from micro businesses to Fortune 500 companies, including Google, Merck, Parsons Corporation, and many others. His first book, Design Any Disaster, The Revolutionary Blueprint to Master Your Next Crisis or Emergency, was released in March of 2023 and provides some really great resources and thinking on this topic. Patrick, anything you would like to highlight by way of your background or personal context before we dive on in?
Well, no, I think that was pretty comprehensive, although I was also hall monitor in 3rd grade, so I think we forgot that one too.
Yeah, and I was crossing guard in 6th grade, so.
There you go. We're a pretty distinguished crowd. What can I tell you?
Awesome. No, you've done some really cool stuff. And this is an area, we talk about all these different topics on this podcast, all workplace related things that are really important. This topic is one that we haven't covered as much, and it's really important. It's one we don't like to think about, frankly. We don't want to have to think about those negative things. And when we think about negative things, we usually don't want to think about disasters. We want to think about things that are at least, maybe somewhat in our control, or at least the perception of control. And so this makes us uncomfortable. And so as we get started, maybe lay out for us kind of your general framework or thinking around why most people don't plan for disasters. Is this just human nature, part of the human condition? And if most people don't plan, like, how do we disrupt that? How do we get it to a place where people kind of are proactively part of that process?
Well, and I think what you said, John, I think is the precise reason why people don't plan for disasters, because they think it's out of their control. They think these are events that are inevitably going to happen. There's just nothing we can do about it. And what my philosophy is I reciprocate that. I say that absolutely it is within our control. Now, are you going to control a hurricane? You're not going to control a hurricane. You're not going to control an earthquake. But what you can control is your operational responses to it, how your people approach it. So this is the thinking that I tell people. I say most disaster programs, even ones, for those of you who are hearing this, who, if you work for big companies, I have read thousands of these where disaster plans will say things like, they were written by this distinguished consultant or written by these people. And I'll go through the plan, and the plan will rest on one fundamental erroneous assumption. If I do nothing, someone else will handle it for me. Because what companies will do, and this is unintentional, they will calcify into the plan. If you're the employee, do what you're told. That's it. You don't have control. You're not responsible for disruption operations. Just do what you're told by upper management. That is the very first ingredient in the recipe for, okay, none of this is under my control. So managers are going to handle it. So what I tell people is, I want you to change your perspective to, if I do nothing, no one else will either. Even if you work for a big company, I want you to assume no one's going to help you. I want you to assume FEMA's not going to help you. I want you to assume those people who wear the uniforms and the badges are not going to help you. If you make that assumption, you see how that changes your behavior now? Because now you have to be proactive. I have to plan for myself. I have to figure out how this is going to work on my own. And that's the thesis of the book. And I tell people to that regardless of whether it's regarding your families, your pets, or your businesses.
Yeah. So you take back ownership over how you respond. You can't control what happens. You can't control the natural disaster. You can't control the external environment, whatever the thing is, right? That is out of our control. But we do get to control how we respond to it and what our preparation is for it. And ultimately, what our preparation is may not end up being enough. That's true. And the disaster could be worse than we had thought, worse than we had planned. That all could be true. But, if we're proactive, at least, you can sleep a little bit better at night, knowing that you're putting, a positive foot forward, that you're making a best effort, that you have some plans in place, that you have a way to respond, and you don't have to like figure it all out on day one. Like you can get something in place and then start to refine it and perfect it and improve it over time. I'm thinking about like a family natural disaster plan. Like I live in Utah. We don't have hurricanes, we don't have tornadoes, we don't have any of those sorts of things, but we're projected to be due for like a huge earthquake. Like geologists say, anytime, like literally anytime. It could have been in the last 50 years, it could be in the next 50 years, but we're due for like a huge, huge earthquake. And whenever it hits, it's going to be devastating. And so we just know as a family, we have to, the state has plans, right? But I can't count on them to take care of my family. And so we have to have a plan in place. And so we have all these different plans. We have bug out bags. We have we have all these different things so that we at least have a sense that we know how to respond. And at the end of the day, like if the house collapses on us, that's worse. That's a worst case scenario, and that's worse than I could have planned for. But at least, we have something that we're trying to, take some kind of control back, right? And those are worst case scenarios. Like usually we don't get worst case scenarios. So usually if we're making those proactive steps as a business with our teams, then we will be in a good place. We will be in good shape to be able to respond to the things that come at us.
Well, I'm going to make one friendly correction to your vocabulary, John, but everything else I understand entirely. I actually write about this in the book. I tell people don't ever call it a bug out bag, because what that means is when we hear that term, it immediately says we're panicked, we're stuck,
sure.
Right? We're freaking out, right? That's what it ultimately means. But what I tell people is I say, that's your disaster backpack. And that is the backpack that you utilize. In fact, I carry a sling with me everywhere I go. It has all my disaster supplies in it. It doesn't have to have a huge backpack, but literally if I go to business meetings, when I go places, I always have the sling on because I always want to have control of it. So that was only a minor correction I was going to tell you. Everything else I understand entirely, and I agree with you that there are lots of different hazards that people can anticipate. And then there's many that you can't anticipate. For any particular home, any particular business, there are a lot of hazards that people have no idea about. I was actually doing a disaster plan in Arkansas in a place called Pine Bluff. So I was sitting there and I ended up speaking to the county emergency professional. And so as I was talking to him, I noticed on the wall that he had this hazardous materials suit straight out of the X-Files, And I used to be a hazmat guy, so I knew what the suit was. But I noticed something, that he had all the strips of tape that he had placed against the wall. And for those of you who have never been involved in petrochemical work, that tape is used to actually tape the uniform when you put on the uniform. And you actually tape up so that there is just you create as few leak as possible, because you want to protect your body as much as you possibly can. And I asked him why it was there. And he told me it was because they were decommissioning VX nerve agent just a few miles down the road. And he said, the Army has told me over and over again, everything's fine, it's protected. But in the end, if there is an accidental release, I'm responsible to protect myself. And so I went back to the business and I said, we need to make sure that we create a solid lockdown, what we call a chemical lockdown plan. And they were like, what's that? Is that like what you deal with when you're dealing with mass shooters and stuff? And I said, not at all. Very different. And there's ways we need to make sure we're taping the vents up. We do all that. But here's the rub, John, is that I told the managers, I said, in your disaster plan, because for businesses, you really do have to have one in most instances. In that plan, you need to empower employees to be able to do things on their own. Because if that release occurs in the middle of the night, you're not here.
Right.
Management's home. Or maybe you're on jury duty. Maybe you're in Barbados. Maybe you're just sick that day, whatever, right? And so the employees have to know, if something happens, I have a very, very short window of time, and there is a kaleidoscope of activities that I have to perform. But if the plan says you don't do anything, you let managers tell you what to do, all of a sudden you've turned your entire workforce, and I'm sure you've talked to a lot of other folks who talk about empowering employees. You want to talk about something that will disempower employees? write in a disaster plan, don't do anything, call management and wait. That disempowers employees more than anything else. So what I tell them instead is I say, listen, we're going to get focused. We're going to have the equipment in place, the policies in place, the procedures in place, and we're going to give you the authority, because the disaster plan represents everything that management has said is acceptable for employees to perform when there is a business interruption, whether that is a cyber attack, whether it is a hurricane or a hazardous materials incident, or if the ceilings are caving on us.
Yeah. So why do you think that is? Like, why do all these businesses, why do all these leaders put that kind of, a default kind of assumption in these documents? Why do they say don't do anything, wait for management to tell you what to do? Why is that the default stance?
It is absolutely the default stance. And I tell you this, I actually got after a consultant friend of mine because just by pure coincidence, I happened to be hired by a business that they had written a disaster plan some years before. And they said, listen, we'd hired this consultant. We can't reach him now. He's moved on to some other company. And so would you like to, audit it and work on it? I said, fine. And I looked at the back and it was written by a close friend of mine, actually, and a colleague. And so I ended up getting after him. I was actually keynoting on the East Coast, and I took him out to lunch and I kind of ribbed him about it because the plan said all those things. Employees don't do anything, don't say anything. And the reason I think it happens is one word: fear. They are worried that employees are going to do the wrong things. They feel as though employees are going to do things that are detrimental to the business. But here's what I would give as a counter narrative. When you tell employees to do nothing, when you tell them you can't do anything, now that's when employees are put in a position where they feel distressed and insecure. So when you tell them instead, you know what, you're not going to do everything, but there is a narrow bandwidth of things that you absolutely can do, should do, and we encourage you to do it, because then that gives employees investment. It makes them feel empowered. It makes them feel as though I take a part in this plan. In fact, one of the things I do all the time, I actually do this with managers. It drives them crazy, but I like doing it anyway. Torturing managers is just a perk of the job. I get to tell managers I'll have a disaster planning workshop, and there'll be a bunch of employees in there. I'll say, anyone here is a manager or senior management or C-suite? And they'll get some hands raised. I'll be like, we'll see you in 30 minutes. Go ahead and go get your coffee, answer some emails. We'll see you in a half hour. And they'll leave. And I'll say to the employees, okay, guys, tell me what's really going on here. Tell me what really goes on here. And so then I lay out the plans and I say, we're going to do this and this. You guys tell me. There's no managers here. I don't work for you. I have a random uniform on. You tell me what's going to be effective. And John, you would be astonished at the answers that I get. Because then I'll bring the managers back in, then I'll ask the managers, what do you think? And they'll give me different answers. And as a disaster professional, that's that interactive dialectic that I want. It is that refutation that helps me to get to the real way this is going to work in a business interruption. Because if you don't involve employees at all, they're not invested. They don't care. And I say this to managers all the time. If you don't care, they don't care. And you know how you demonstrate that you don't care? By not asking them anything about the plans. They need to be involved, because these are the people that are going to be executing these things. These are the people who are going to be involved in doing this. So one of the things you do is you involve them in the disaster planning process. And I work with small businesses. I'm not working with big conglomerates all the time. I work with little companies. And I say, there's 7 of us here. So that means you really are involved. I'm going to give a quick example here. One of the things that I see all the time, and this is just a quick way that for those of you who see this is an easy way to empower employees. I'll see constantly in crisis communication plans, if there is a disaster, don't talk to the media. Tell them no comment. Those are the 2 words, no comment. And I say, you know what my 2 words are? No way. No chance. That's not what I want you to do. What I want you to do is, if you really don't want employees talking to the media, that's fine. But what you say instead is this: tell them to talk to so-and-so. We are okay with you talking to the media as long as you say, talk to John Doe at 555-1212. He'll talk to you today at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. Now that tells employees you trust them enough to give them information, and it doesn't make you sound conspiratorial. Because
Yeah.
you've been in business a long time. I mean, you've seen a lot of companies that do a lot of silly things during a crisis, and one of them is reporters will call up and they'll say, no comment. Well, we hear that you're killing people. No comment. We hear you're trying to destroy the earth. No comment. You know what I mean? And so that's what gets printed. When asked whether they're trying to destroy the world and kill everybody, their answer was no comment. And so what I say to employees instead is I say, let's just multiply the message that you want, which is we just want John Doe to talk about this. That empowers employees versus saying you're excluded, we'll handle it. If you do nothing, that's okay, we will handle it for you, instead of saying we are a team, let's work together to solve this, to make it successful.
Yeah, well, I like all of that, and like you said, I do talk with a lot of leaders about employee empowerment generally. This is a very specific use case, like of employee empowerment within a crisis scenario, but the principles are the same. Like if you want buy-in, you have to include them in the process of gathering information, of communicating, of the planning process, of all of those things. And if you don't, regardless of what your best intention is, if you're not involving your people in that process, people, they fill in the gaps. They start to get skeptical, and they start to get conspiratorial, and they start to assume things that aren't even there. And all of a sudden you just lose the faith and trust of your people. And so, especially in an emergency where you need the faith and trust of your people, it's not there because you haven't done the basic things that need to happen in order to build and maintain that. And so you think your people are just automatically going to, fall in line and do every last thing that you need them to do in this crisis emergency situation just because you said so. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, and it's because it's so funny because I'll go to companies and they'll have this culture. I'll see this, the obligatory posters on the wall, and everybody says, we include you. We love you, employees. We want you involved. This is a family. I see that all the time. And then I'll read a disaster plan and it'll say, do what you're told, basically.
Yeah.
And so I'll say,
so you're treating them like a
dissonance.
child.
Yeah, right. And in essence, it happens. I tell the story in the book about, I don't know if you remember this, John, but a few years ago, there was the state of Hawaii made a mistake. They accidentally notified everyone in the state that a nuclear launch from North Korea was in progress. And I work with a lot of high net worth clients, and there happened to be a celebrity golf tournament going on.
Oh.
And I got a phone call from one of my celebrity clients, and he said, I'm at a golf tournament. He's one of the top golfers in the world. He calls me on my private line and says, this is going on. And we all panicked. I mean, we all just said, we don't know what's going on. We didn't hear anything about this. So we got focused. And we said, really, what's happening here? Go to the front desk of the hotel. And because the state of Hawaii hadn't put out anything else, nothing else had happened. We hadn't heard anything from NORAD. Nothing had happened from my security partners. I hadn't heard anything. This has come totally out of the blue. And he goes to the front desk and he was talking to them and he said, where do we go? He said, what? And this is a 5-star hotel. These are like, this is a high class hotel in the state of Hawaii in Honolulu. And he says, where are we supposed to go? And the employees said, let's search the disaster plan. The disaster plan said, go call the manager. So I said, okay, so while the nuclear missile is on its way, we're calling the manager. So the manager, she tries to call the manager, and the manager eventually comes back. She was on property doing something. She shows up at the front desk, and the employee turns, and I could hear this on the phone. She turns to the manager and says, what should we do? And the manager says, what does the disaster plan say? She's like, the disaster plan says, ask you. You know what I mean? So that's what happens when management hires top consultants. They get people who mean well. They have good meaning, but in the end, they are calcifying in plans that totally disempower employees and puts them in a position where they do not feel comfortable to be extemporaneous. Because one of the things you mentioned in the very beginning, I loved it. You talking about disrupting the disaster. And that's actually what I talk about specifically. I actually use that exact vocabulary because one of the things I say to folks is is the disaster really disrupting you? Is it because of the plan, or is it because of, because you're worried about it's a 7.0 earthquake? Because in the end, you can have 7.0 earthquakes and the company will be disrupted, but in the end, the company will be on secured operational footing versus plans that simply say, we have to wait for management, because that is when companies get in trouble. It's not the size of the disaster. It's got nothing to do with that. The severity of the disaster is based upon how much empowerment have you put into those plans. Because a category, I tell folks all the time, as a matter of fact, in all my YouTube videos, I always say this in the end. I always say, prepare for a disaster and you will never experience one. And I say that because in the end, these are not disasters. A 7.0 earthquake, a 5.0 hurricane, an EF5 tornado, those are not disasters. Where the disasters occur is where the intersection is between Mother Nature or whatever the interruption is, a cyber attack, whatever, and human management. So when our structures don't have a way of absorbing that and dealing with that effectively, that's when the disaster occurs. That's when we get in trouble as management teams. That's what happens when we disempower our employees, because at that point we say, if you do nothing, that's okay, we'll handle it for you. But oh, by the way, the boss isn't even here. And that's how companies tend to get in big trouble.
And even if they were, they don't even know what to do.
No, they don't. And that's the interesting thing, is that they do that all the time, which is they will actually come up to them and say, hey, listen, this is going on and this is going on. How are you going to handle these things? And they go, I don't know. They have no idea, particularly when it's not a common business interruption. So like I was actually in Florida, I ran this drill because this facility, it was actually a skilled nursing facility. So it was a nursing home, and they were very well prepared. In fact, the administrator of that facility, she had a nickname. Her nickname was Hurricane. Her name was Hurricane Janet. That was her name, Hurricane Janet, because Janet was a very well disciplined and knew how to handle hurricanes. The woman had to be 70 years old herself. She'd been through many hurricanes, had worked there for umpteen years. So I decided to run a drill at her facility, and she goes, we're ready for a hurricane. We are ready to go. And so I said, okay, it's going to be an earthquake drill. And she said, an earthquake in South Florida? And I said, it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to get you and your staff to understand is that there are disasters and interruptions that are sudden. Hurricanes are telegraphed disasters. You know about them. I used to work in the governor's office in Louisiana. We used to monitor hurricanes when they were off the coast of Cameroon. In Africa, they used to monitor. There are actually, a lot of people don't realize this. We actually have weather monitoring stations in Cameroon specifically because they monitor the beginnings of a tropical depression, beginnings of tropical storms. So what I say is, so when you are dealing with these things, it's like you need to don't get calcified into one kind, because then what happens is your whole operations get thrown off footing. That's why think about lots of different kinds of telegraph disasters and unusual ones as well.
Well, and what I thought you were going to say maybe is like the scenario of like the earthquake happens and something like falls and hits this lady on the head and takes her out. So now she's not there with all of her expertise and decades of experience, and now everyone else has to figure it out. Like those types of situations happen too. And so it like to put all of that responsibility on one or just a few people is really silly. Like you do have to be able to disperse it, and you have to help everyone understand their role. Anyways.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. As a matter of fact, I say it to management all the time. Actually, we'll run drills. I've done this many times. I'll go to a company and I'll say, okay, we're going to run a drill. And once again, because I like to torture managers, I will say for the first half hour, you get to watch, but not participate. And then I will take an employee in the back, a brand new employee, and I'll say, hi, why don't you come on up to the front? And they'll go, well, I'm new. I go, oh, so you don't know very much about the company, right? Oh, no. You don't know a lot about our operations, right? Oh, no. Perfect. You're in charge. and the management will freak out, and I'll say, you know what? We're now about to test your disaster plan for real, not the nonsense Shakespearean drills that you run every time where it's like, so-and-so comes from stage right, then we go from stage left, we say these lines, we do these things, and we go back to work and forget that ever happened. Instead, I run the drill where I say, we're putting random people in charge, because you know why? If they can't use the plan, nobody can use the plan. Because if you're not available for the precise reasons that you've exactly identified, because Managers get hit on the head all the time. They get injured, they get incapacitated. This is actually the biggest reason. There will be a disaster and they will go and pick up their kids from school and they'll get isolated and can't come back. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Or they'll pick up their animals. This happens too. I know it sounds very strange for those of you who don't come from animal cultures or from places in the country that don't have a strong animal culture. There are people who literally will leave work, and I'm not making this up. They will leave work. They will go pick up their animals and turn to their supervisors and say, if I can't get my animal, I'm not coming back to work. I had this happen at a hospital on the East Coast where I was working on their disaster program. And literally I sat with the employees, just like I told you earlier, the managers were gone. And I said, guys, what would prevent you from coming back? And somebody said, if these people don't provide an animal shelter for my dog, I'm not coming back to work, period. And their disaster plan said, if we call you to work, you must show up for work. Okay, now we've identified something that management didn't identify, but that is a contradiction. It's disempowering employees. So what we have to do is we have to put them in a position where we say, we understand what your considerations are, you understand what ours are, so let's make this so that it works well. Because, and I'm sure you've seen this, John, many times, in a crisis, you have to have a functioning team. If teams are not functioning well, what are we doing here? I mean, the plan's not going to work. I don't care what equipment you have. I don't care what technology you have. I don't care you have the greatest apps and AIs and you bought all this expensive software and you have people you can call. I care about that. Zero, because none of that stuff, and I could give a dozen examples. If we had time for an hour and a half podcast, I literally would lay out dozens of examples of people who said, I have this beautiful technology, I've got this AI, I've got these things, I've got these monitoring equipment, I hired these big companies, and I could run a simple drill with a pencil and a piece of paper that would trip all of that up. Very, very simply. And it's because, not because the technology doesn't work, it's because we didn't empower people. We told them, if you do nothing, that's okay. Someone else will handle it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Patrick, this has just been such a great conversation. I know at the time I probably need to let you go here in a minute, but before we wrap things up, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, where they can find your book, and then give us the final word for today.
Well, it's official. I've moved away from becoming a day-to-day CEO, and now I am what they casually call a content creator. So I'm a keynote speaker. I speak around the country. So people can go to disasterpatrick.com. Again, disaster normal spelling, patricknormalspelling.com. And there you'll see my work as a keynote speaker. I'm now a YouTuber. I create all kinds of great content. I consult, I coach, I do executive trainings with C-suites. And yes, you're busy. Yes, you travel a lot. I'll travel with you. I've done this many times. I've actually done coaching sessions before when I was on a corporate jet when they were flying from one place to another. They flew there. I coached them on the way. I sat in the plane. They did their meetings. They came back on the plane and I coached them on the way home because that was the only time that they had. But I do all those things. And as I said, as a YouTuber, I'm doing some incredible videos. I'm taking on the most difficult disaster challenges in the world. Just really quick, two of the challenges I did last year, I broke a Guinness World Record. I did CPR for 28 straight hours.
Oh my goodness.
In another one, I evacuated 240 cats from a cat shelter in 90 minutes. So, and I empowered a team to do that, and that really had never been done before. So this year we've got some incredible challenges ahead. It's really exciting. It's really fun. So my final message to you is this. Disaster planning doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom. As you can tell by my personality, that's not my thing. And my father was a disaster professional, and my grandfather was a disaster professional. And my belief is if we empower you, if we empower your employees, if we empower your staff, we energize them, we can get them to a place where there's no longer a disaster at all. Because what happens is we turn these things into things that are predictable, they are manageable, they are things that are within our control. Because in the end, if you do those things, and if you put yourself into place, and I can teach you how to do that, and I can empower your staff on how to do all those things, then in the end, if you prepare for the disasters in those ways, you will never, ever experience one ever again. My book is available on Amazon.com. I enjoyed being in conversation with you today, John. I hope I get a chance to speak with some of you. I would look forward to speaking to all of you. So thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Patrick. It's been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, to get connected, find out more about what Patrick can do for you, check out the book. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.